Assalamu alaikum, my dear learners. I hope you will be fine. And welcome to my YouTube channel, Training for All. This is Muhammad Ramzan. And today we will talk about Module 2 of IOSH Managing Safely. I have already uploaded two lectures on Module 1, Lecture 1 and Lecture 2. So this is our third session of IOSH Managing Safely. And specifically, this is very important lecture with respect to the risk assessment. Because you all know risk assessment is important, either who talk about the NIBOSH, either who talk about the OSHA, or either who talk about the IOSH managing safely, as well as this risk assessment is very much important with the duties, with the responsibilities of the safety officer, because this is one of the powerful tool which we apply in the organization to identify the hazards, to assess them, as well as to take the control measure. Usually, as a safety professional, we have two types of action in the organization. One is the proactive, and the second one is the reactive. Proactive means those which we just take before the happening of any accident, mean we try to avoid the accident. So accident should not happen. Like we carry out the internal audit, we carry out the inspections, we carry out the risk assessment, as well as we carry out the worker consultation. So these are the actions which are related to the proactive approach or proactive arrangements. Mean before happening of any accident, we just try that accident should not happen, because we all know that accidents are not good. But the second action which can be taken by the safety officer, that is the reactive. Reactive mean, once something wrong will happen in case of accident, then action will be taken in the form of accident investigation and prevention, in the form of some control measures or some corrective measures in the organization. These measures are called the corrective measures. So proactive measures are always better. As we discussed earlier, that as a safety officer, we are responsible to control the losses, to control the damages of the organization. And now question is that how we can control those losses, how we can control those damages. Ultimately, we apply different tactics, we apply different tools so that accident should not happen. So, my dear learner, this risk assessment or is assessing the risk is one of the powerful tool which we apply in the organization. How it works basically in peacetime. Still, there is no accident, but we are assuming, we are expecting that things may go wrong. Accident can happen anytime. And as a human being, we always go for shortcut. So in peacetime, we usually carry out the risk assessment. My dear learners, in most of the organization, this job is done by the safety professional almost on daily basis. If the organization is a project-based organization, task-based organization, where everywhere different activities are being carried out, like there is a crane operation, ultimately before start of crane operation, safety officer will carry out the risk assessment. If there is a excavation, if there is a confined space, if there is a working at height, if there is a scaffolding work, or if there is a manual handling. So ultimately, before doing these tasks, there would be the risk assessment which would be conducted by the safety officer. So in risk assessment, we try to identify the hazards, that what can be the possible hazard while crane operation, while confined space work, or while working on the scaffolding. So who will identify the hazards, and at the same time who will suggest the control measures, that how we can ensure that this crane operation or this scaffolding operation can be the safe operation. Okay, my dear learners, most of the time we listen from the different safety professionals. We listen from the organization that we are carrying out the risk assessment, but in spite of risk assessment, still accidents are happening. So it means that the risk assessment is not done perfectly, efficiently, or effectively. So question arises that why the risk assessment is not effective, or how it can be ineffective. For example, if your safety manager is not competent, he does not know how to identify the hazard. He does not know how to assess the risk in the workplace. Ultimately, accident will happen because a hazard will not be identified and hazard will not be controlled. So, my dear learners, as a safety professional, when we talk about the risk assessment, this risk assessment having three stages, or you can say that we carry out the risk assessment based on three steps. So, step one is to identify the hazard, which is the basic, which is the prime to identify the hazard. Where is the hazard? So, this is stage one. Once the stage one is completed, we will switch over to stage two, that is to assess the risk, to assess the hazard, which one is the major, which one is the medium, and which one is the minor. Basically, in assessment, my dear learners, we are setting the priority. Why we set the priorities as a safety professional? Because we want to know that which hazard is having the more serious consequences, which is having the more likelihood, which can be more harmful for us. Ultimately, the hazard which can be more harmful for us, that would be addressed on most immediate basis. So in assessment, we will try to know that the which one is the major and which one is the medium and which one is the minor. So once the assessment is, and my dear learners, how we will carry out the assessment, we will also discuss in detail, but the purpose, or you can say risk assessment, will be based on the likelihood and the consequences. Likelihood is the chance of happening, and consequence, if it will happen, what will be the result, what will be the outcome. So at second stage, we will carry out the assessment. On third stage, we will talk about the control measures, that how the hazard will be controlled, how the hazard will be addressed. So, my dear learners, now we discuss all these steps one by one. First, I want to define what is the hazard and what is the risk. My dear learner, when we define the word hazard, we say anything that has the potential to cause harm, that is the hazard. For example, there is a naked wire in your workplace, that is the hazard. If there is a slippery floor in your working area, that is also the hazard. If there is an unguarded machine, so that is also the hazard. So when we talk about the risk, so risk can be defined that the combination of likelihood and the consequences. Likelihood is the chance of happening, and consequence is the result of happening, is the outcome of that happening. So it does not mean that we cannot assess the risk only based on the likelihood or only based on the consequences. So there is the formula that the how the risk will be calculated. Risk will always be equal to likelihood multiplied by the consequences. So question is that as a safety professional, how we can identify the hazard from the workplace. My dear learners, usually we use three types of method or three methods to identify the hazard from the workplace. First method is that is observation. This observation is also called as a practical visit or observation. So the second method which we use during the hazard identification, that is the interview, or that is questioning, asking question from the employees. So this is the second method to identify the hazard. And my dear learners, third method to identify the hazard, that is to review the documents. So first one is the practical visit or observation. Second one is the documents review. And the third one, you can say by asking the question or by taking interview. So when we are carrying out the practical visit of the working areas, ultimately we will use all five senses. The purpose to use all five senses, that no hazard should be missed from us. Five senses mean during the hazard identification while carrying out the practical visit on site, we will use the sense of hearing, sense of sight, sense of taste, sense of touch, and sense of smell. The purpose is to identify all types of the hazard, because we all know that if hazards are properly identified, properly addressed, as assessment carried out, then ultimately we can say with confidence that nothing will happen in the organization. It is only possible if we are identifying the hazards properly. And furthermore, in the field of risk assessment, we usually say that the identification of the hazard is a 50% solution of the hazard. If the hazard is identified, it means your problem is almost 50% resolved because you came to know about the hazard. Minimum you got the information that what is the hazard or what are the hazards are there. So ultimately you will take control measures accordingly. So by using these three methods, who will carry out the risk assessment, who will try to know. And during the practical visit, what will be the area of the interest? During the practical visit, our area of interest will be the people of the organization, how they are working, how they are trained, how they are competent. Either they have they are following the safety culture, they have the safety attitude or not. They are using the personal protective equipment, they are working properly, they are mature, competent, holding the permit to work or operating license or proper authorization from the safety department. So once the people are assessed, then the second area of interest will be the equipment. Either there is a proper inspection and maintenance of the equipment, proper logbook is maintained, there is a safe distance between machine to machine, and furthermore, machines are properly guarded. Workers have the education how to operate the machine safely. Either there is a proper emergency buttons which are displayed with red color. Okay. The third area of interest will be the working environment. What about the working environment? What about the lighting condition? What about the temperature condition? What about the overcrowding? And what about the emergency arrangement in the organization? And furthermore, what about the stress in the organization? So the purpose is to identify the hazards by using the practical observation. So these hazards can be related to the working environment, related to the equipment, and related to the personnel. The third area of interest during the practical visit, that is the material. Material storage, transportation, handling, and the availability, as well as the consultation of material safety data sheet. So it means that we have applied one method while focusing on the people, equipment, environment, and the material. For example, we came to know that there are about 20 hazards which have been identified by using the practical observation. Okay, then we will switch over to the second method, that is by asking the question from the employees. For example, during the practical visit, I came to know that there is a proper emergency exit, there is the proper fire cylinders. But how I will come to know that either workers have the understanding that how to use these firefighting equipment, how to use first aid, and how to get exit from these emergency exit, and what is the role of the assembly point. Ultimately, it will be confirmed through the interview. It will be confirmed through asking the question from the employees. So by asking the question, I came to know that workers do not have the information that how to operate the fire cylinder. Workers do not have the information about the emergency exit, about the assembly point. So these are also the hazard, and during the interview session or asking the question, again I have identified about 20 hazards. Now I will switch over to the third option, that is the documents review. During the risk assessment, I will also confirm that either my workers are trained, they have got the sufficient training in 2023 and 24 as well. There's a proper training record. There's a proper equipment inspection maintenance record. There is the proper environment and hygienic condition and whitewashing and the environmental testing and temperature. There is the proper documentation related to the environment. There is the proper documentation related to the material storage, material transportation, and material handling. So by using these documents review, again I came to know that there are, for example, 10 hazards. It means that during the hazard identification stage, I came to know that in my organization, there are about 50 hazards. Some hazards are related to electrical, some hazards are related to chemical, Some hazards are related to mechanical. For example, some hazards are related to noise, unguarded machine, falling hazard, slipping hazard, and tripping hazard. So I made the list of about 50 hazards. Now question is that once the hazards are identified and you have prepared the list of 50 hazards, which hazard will be corrected first? Which hazard will be controlled first? For example, at the first, at the in your hazard identification list, the first hazard is the slippery surface. Second is the unguarded machine. Third one is the tripping hazard, and the fourth one is the electrical hazard, naked wire. So, what do you think? Which hazard will be controlled? If you control the slippery surface first, then the excessive noise third, and then the unguarded machine at the fourth, and then the naked wire. Ultimately, it will take time to switch off from one hazard to another, and so on. If due to the naked wire, if there is an injury or death of the personnel, ultimately, can you justify this reason that I was trying to remove the slipping hazard or unguarded machine, and meanwhile this accident has happened so far? It means you would not having any justification. It means that once the hazards are identified, you have to assess them. You should try to know that which one is the major, which needs immediate attention, which one is the medium, which one is the minor. So how you will come to know that the which is the major, which is the medium, and which is the minor? So ultimately you will carry out the assessment, you will carry out the evaluation. For the assessment or the evaluation, we have a one formula as discussed earlier, that whenever we try to calculate the risk, we always say that the risk is equal to likelihood multiplied by the consequences. Likelihood is the chance of happening, is the probability or possibility of the happening, and the consequence is the result of the happening. You can say outcome or output of the happening. So usually we use the rating scale from 1 to 5. In some organization, they use the 1 to 4. In some organization, they use 1 to 10. So the basic purpose is to use this formula that we should be able to quantify the risk quantitatively, not based on the qualitative. In quantitative risk assessment, we will use the rating scale. For example, if we have the two naked wire in our workplace, one is about 3 feet height and the second one is about the 15 feet height. If we want to know that the which naked wire needs to be corrected first and then accordingly at the second, ultimately we will use this formula on each hazard, and then accordingly we will come to know. For example, if I carry out the assessment of the naked wire, which is about 3 feet height, for example, if I talk about the likelihood, I came to know that this is approach of every person of the organization, and this is in the approach of every child of the, if we talk about the home or even at the organization. So I came to know that there are 5 likelihood, mean there is the high possibility of this happening because it is in the approach of the people. So you will give rating scale 5. And this is about the likelihood. Now the second option is that is the consequence or that is the severity. Severity or consequence mean what will be the result if it will happen. I came to know that there is about 220 voltage. So it can lead to death as well. Again, you will give the high rating scale of the consequences, which we have used from 1 to 5. So you will say that its consequences are about 5. So by putting these values in the formula, risk is equal to likelihood multiplied by the consequence. Likelihood is the chance and consequence is the outcome or is the result of it if it will happen. So he came to know that this naked wire is having 5 multiplied by 5 is equal to 25, which is which is having the highest rating scale. So it falls in major hazard category. Okay, if we talk about the second naked wire, which is about 15 feet height, if we try to assess the likelihood that what are the chances of happening, then we came to know that there is the 15 feet height, so there is a very less likelihood that there would be the contact of the individual with that naked wire, because that is having 15 feet height. But again, there is the possibility. So my I am giving the rating scale about, you can say, 2, because there is the likelihood, but not 100%. About 20-30% there is the possibility that someone is carrying out the painting or whitewashing or making some access at some location. There is the possibility of contact with that naked wire, so you are giving the 2 points to this rating scale. That is the likelihood. The second one is, that is the consequence. Consequence mean that if it will happen, what will be the result? You came to know, again there is a 220 voltage, so it means your consequences will remain same. As you mentioned, as you assigned 5 rating scale for the naked wire which was at 4 feet height, now consequences will remain same, either we talk about the 15 feet or 50 feet height, because if it will having the contact, result will be the same because the same voltage are there. So it means you would be giving the high rating scale to the consequences. So high rating consequences 5. So you have assigned 2 likelihood and 5 consequences. 5 twos are 10. It means you have identified 2 naked wire at different location. One got 25 score and the other naked wire hazard got the 10 hazard, 10 score, you can say. So it means the naked wire which should be at priority A, that is which is having 3 or 4 feet height, and the priority B which is having the what I should say got 10 marks, which is priority B. So this is called the risk assessment. My dear viewers, my dear learners, when we are giving this rating scale, as I told you that usually sometime we will be using the rating scale from 1 to 4, sometime we will be using the rating scale from 1 to 5, and sometime we will be using the rating scale from 1 to 10. If we are using the rating scale from 1 to 5, it means that by putting these values in the formula, your maximum answer will be 25. In that case, where there is the high likelihood and high consequences, which is 5 multiplied by 5 is equal to 25, which is the highest rate, and the lowest value will be 1. 1 mean, for example, if there is a slippery surface, you feel that there is the likelihood about 1, and consequences is about 1 as well, because if someone will slip out, there will be no much consequences. So you are giving the likelihood rating scale 1 and consequences is also 1. So 1 multiplied by 1 is equal to 1. So it means by using the rating scale from 1 to 5, your minimum answer will be 1 and maximum answer will be 25. So what we do here, we just try to classify them. We just say that after putting these values in the formula, if the answer is from 1 to 8, then that hazard will be called as a minor hazard. If the rating level is from 9 to 16, then we will say this would be the medium. And if the rating level is from 17 to 25, then we will say this will be the major, because you know that if the rating scale is more than 17 to 25, then we can say that in this case likelihood is minimum 4 and consequences are also minimum 4 or 5. So this is the basically classification, or this is the basically prioritizing that which one is the major, which one is the medium, and which one is the minor. My dear learners, by using this formula and applying this formula to all hazards which we have identified, and we mentioned that about 50 hazards. Now you have set the priority that out of 50 hazards, 20 hazards are the minor, 20 are the medium, and rest 10 hazards are the major. So it means you have to correct the major hazard first, whose likelihood and consequences are high. Then you will switch over to the medium, and accordingly you will switch over to the minor level. Because my dear learners, you have to remove all types of the hazard, either that is the major, medium, or minor, but for the time you are setting the priority. So this is the second stage of risk assessment. First, we have identified the hazard. Now you have assessed the hazard, or we have carried out the assessment, and we came to know that out of 50 hazard, which one is the major, medium, and minor. Now we will switch over to third stage of the risk assessment, that is to take the control measures. This would also be the responsibility of safety professional to identify, to assess, as well as at the last stage you have to control them efficiently and effectively. So how you will control them? Some hazard will be controlled by the for example, if there is a noise from the machine, ultimately you will try to carry out the maintenance, modification, lubrication, redesigning of the machine. That would be called as a engineering control. That's why in most of the organization, safety officer is called the safety engineer. Some hazards will be controlled by the administrative. For example, if you cannot eliminate or reduce the noise of the machine, then ultimately you will try to maximize the distance, or you will try to uh, ensure, or you will try to install some barricade. That is the administrative control. In some cases, you will try to reduce the likelihood. In some cases, you will try to reduce the consequences. And in some cases, you will try to reduce the both. So it means that we have to control the risk. And after the control has been implemented, in some cases we say there are three types of control. First one is the engineering, second one is the administrative, and the third one is the personal protective equipment. But in some cases we say that there are some other controls like ERIC, we call it ERIC PD: eliminate, reduce, isolate, PP, and discipline. Mean first we will try to eliminate the hazard. If elimination is applied and is good, which mean in elimination control we are trying to remove the problem from the roots. 100% we are removing the problem. Is mean is we have applied the elimination control. But my dear learners, in some cases this elimination is not possible. Then we will try to reduce them up to the acceptable level. For example, if the noise level is about 150 decibel noise dB, which is unacceptable, noise level 85 decibel for 8 hours. But again, if it is high, we will try to eliminate. We came to know that the elimination is not possible. Then we will switch over to the reduce. Minimum it should be reduced by using the some maximizing the distance, by using the soundproofing material, by using some, what I should say, barricade or enclosure, so and so. We have reduced the hazard, but still we came to know that the residual risk, that is called residual risk. If the residual risk is again more than your limit like 85 decibel, then we will also provide the personal protective equipment to the workers. So my dear learner, the third level of the risk assessment, that is the controlling the risk. Risk would be controlled by efficient manner, so that the purpose to carry out the risk assessment, again, to identify the problems, to assess the problem, to remove the problem. The purpose is to make your organization accident free, make your organization hazard free, because we all know that this hazard free organization is not the only the requirement of the organization. Implies also having the desire that we must be provided the safe and healthy working environment. My dear learners, this is all about today's session. In this session, we have discussed about some uh, introduction of risk assessment, stages of risk assessment, how to carry out the risk assessment. Because I came to know from different people, they say that we are carrying out the risk assessment, but in spite of all these accidents are happening, it means they are not carrying out the risk assessment effectively. It means risk assessor is not competent. It means that they are not using the all hazard identification method, like the practical visit, like the documents review, and like the uh, interview also. So my dear learners, thank you very much. Please don't forget to subscribe my channel. Like also, basically this would be the encouragement, this would be the motivation for me, and the benefit to subscribe my channel. Ultimately, I am uploading my lectures on daily basis. So once you will subscribe my channel, you will get all the latest lectures, latest videos on this channel. So wish you best of luck, and we'll see you in lecture 3. That would be about the risk assessment.